Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Game Changer. I'm Mariam Zia. In today's program, we will be talking about G77 plus China, which is a group of 77 developing countries of the world. It was established in 1964. And now the membership of G77 have evolved to 134 countries. We will be discussing how G77 is representing Global South. What are the issues that are faced by countries of the Global South today, and how this is changing or aspiring to change the dynamics of the global world order. Of course, the focus of G77 plus China is to change the global financial system and order, and also to raise a voice of these Global South countries or voices of the developing countries at global stage. Of course, one of the purpose is also to promote multilateralism in the world. We will be talking about G77 plus China, what it means for the world, and also its significance in relation to Pakistan as well. How can Pakistan leverage its membership and its, of course, close relations to China to enhance its own interest in the region and beyond. To discuss this and more, we are joined in the studios by Dr. Zia Shamsi, who is expert in international affairs. Welcome to the program. We're also joined by Mr. Shehryar Khan, who is expert in international affairs. Welcome to the program. And we're joined online by expert in international affairs and senior analyst, Mr. Humayun Khan. Welcome to the program. Dr. Shamsi, let me start with the very basic question. Of course, G77 plus China is a significant group, emerging as a significant multilateral group. Can you give us an overview of the basic objectives and purpose of this group in the United Nations, and how this is becoming or claiming to become voice of the Global South?
Yeah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Mariam. It's a very, very important subject that you have chosen to discuss today. Let me give you a historical perspective first. Whenever such groupings are made, there has to be some background. And as you said, it was established in June 1964. So just go back in time and see what was happening at that time. Okay? Europe was being rehabilitated or rebuilt or reconstructed through a Marshall Plan after the World War II. And the southern states or Africa or Asian countries were getting decolonized at that time. So they were already very poor. And the colonial masters did not leave anything behind, and they took away the wealth with them.
And knowledge as well.
Everything.
Of course.
So it was during the 50s and 60s that the newly independent Asian and African countries felt deprived of their basic rights for their people and the well-being of their people. And they felt that the great economic injustice is being done to them by the developed West or the global North. That is where this idea of getting the developing countries together in the UN, and on 15th June they established G77. At that time there were 77 countries.
Yes.
And their purpose was that due to economic injustices by the developed nations in the 50s and 60s, they will create a new international economic order. Which has now transformed into a little different phrase as new economic world order with the inclusion of China. So that was the basic reason, and
right.
It was a very, very strong voice for Global South. But just see, from 64 to now, it's more than 60 years, nothing has changed. No progress was made. Their voice was not heard because the northern or the western developed countries, they do not believe in the terminologies of mutual support, mutual cooperation, multilateralism. They only believe in loot, plunder, atrocities, sanctions, and these are their favorite voices. Now with the inclusion of China, because China,
China is not a full member, and China gained membership back in 1971, when China itself was a developing country. So of course, China's role is significant, and we will be discussing in detail about China's role later in the show. But of course, Mr. Shajar, when we talk about G77, the recently concluded summit of G77 is also significant. Can you tell us outcomes of this summit? And like, of course, Dr. Shamsi also mentioned that over the decades, voice of South is not being heard. So what has changed in the recent summit?
So, Mariam, first of all, one significant outcome of this G77 conference was that the Secretary General of the UN, Antonio Guterres, he also attended the conference, and he made a very important statement. He said that he declared and he admitted that the global order had failed developing countries. So that was a big statement that he gave. And he said there is a need to overhaul the international world order or the global financial system, which is not working for developing countries. So three main points emerged from the whole discussion that took place. One was the reformation or reforming of the international financial order.
Right.
Which is very inequitable, and we know that it's more deviated towards the developed countries. Other than that, coming over the digital divide or digital technologies, the monopolies that exist, those monopolies should be diluted, and the developing countries should be included in these technologies as well.
In the field of science and technology,
innovation. Other than that, opposition to coercive measures and unilateral sanctions. So we have to keep in mind that this time around the conference happened in Havana, Cuba. And Cuba historically has been under US sanctions for the last 60 years. And a lot of global countries from the global south, they basically oppose these unilateral actions in which developing countries, because they might have a different political system, they might have a different system of governance, they shouldn't be penalized because of those systems, and their development should not be hindered due to unilateral sanctions.
Right.
Other than in the backdrop of this conference, we also have to keep in mind that because of the fact that China has taken a leadership role and is advocating for the role of the agenda of the G77 countries. So this is also in competition with India. At this time when the G77 conference was happening, around that time the G20 conference was also happening. And in the G20, India basically was saying that we also represent the developing countries or the G77 countries, but they did not even send any representation to attend the G77 conference. So getting together G20 countries and saying that we are running the agenda of the developing countries doesn't really make sense, and the rhetoric does not practically manifest itself on ground. China, on the other hand, has already launched the Global Development Initiative, which talks about equitable international order, equitable financial overhauling of the financial system, and China is taking the lead in advocating for the development of the agenda of the G77 countries.
Right.
So all of this was happening in the global order at that time, and these measures were basically accepted by all of these 130 countries.
Right. So, Mr. Omai, of course, we know that G77 plus China has been advocating for fairer economic global order for quite some time now. But can you tell us about some of the reforms that, economic reforms specifically, that they are pushing for, and what are the challenges when we talk about these reforms in the global economic order?
Sharyar was mentioning, it's basically a continuation of a divide between global south and global north. And this particular forum, which we are just discussing today, G77 and China, a forum which talks about an equitable distribution of resources, a forum which talks about a governance model where global south is equally represented, a system where we are ready to reverse the injustice and neglect of centuries which global north has inflicted upon global south. How, in terms of using of resources, in terms of amassing the technology, in terms of the international financial institution, which basically helps the developing country or developed countries more and the underdeveloped countries less. In this universe, there's only one Earth. and we shared the home of humanity. Unfortunately, if we talk about the planet now, we rely for our subsistence. There is an immense, we are facing an immense precedent and unprecedented crisis from COVID, from global supply chain, from food crisis, from a digital divide, from a system which is massively tilted toward the global north. So this particular forum, and particularly what Sharyar was mentioning, the Chinese have taken lead of the global south in terms of helping them. Last year, we have spoken in your program yesterday as well, that G77 plus China helped the COP27 discussion, where we added losses and damages as something which was a climate justice agenda for last 30 years. So that was a very immense achievement for this particular
Of course,
forum.
significant development in this regard, of course. Of course, and of course, let me take the discussion to the studios. Of course, Dr. Shamsi, but when we talk about one of the important goals or purpose of this group is to strive for a fairer economic order. So what are some of the constraints, financial constraints that these developing countries are facing, especially when we talk about unilateral sanctions as well, and what needs to be done to address those challenges?
Yeah, this is very important because the outcome of the conference says that the right to development in an increasingly exclusive, unfair, unjust and plundering international order. So this international order is already challenged. Sharyar mentioned about UN Secretary General. Unfortunately, he also said that multipolarity could be a factor for escalating geostrategic tensions with tragic consequences. So that means,
so there's a dilemma.
yeah,
because we are not clear.
Because he is sitting in
Yes.
New York, you know, we need to understand this. He is sitting in New York. He has to look after the interest of the developed world also. Whereas the host country president, Mr. Miguel, said that he reaffirms our commitment to multilateralism, cooperation and development. So the agenda was very clear, and it is the same agenda which China prophesied for G20, speaks about in G20, although President Xi did not attend, and BRICS and SCO. Why? Because China talks of cooperation, engagement and equal opportunities for all and equality.
And sharing of resources.
Sharing of resources, sharing of knowledge and everything.
Yes.
It is basically a war between Sun Tzu's precepts and Machiavellian ideas. West is clung to Machiavelli's power and security, whereas China is progressing smoothly on Sun Tzu's precepts that win the war without fighting.
Win the war without fighting. But when we talk about winning the war, of course, economic challenges remain main issue for many of these developing countries. And when we talk about these economic challenges, of course, debt relief is an important issue. So are there some maybe policy measures proposed by China in the recently concluded G77 session or summit that are maybe going to be implemented in coming years and maybe giving some relief to these developing countries, including Pakistan?
So, Mariam, there is a call for a reformation of the international financial system and the international.
But that call has been made like decades ago when this group was formed.
Yes. So this group is a pressure group within the United Nations, comprising now of over 130 countries. And the pressure groups are only successful if the global international realities change with the demands. As Shamsi Saab has also mentioned, that this group has been in place for over 60 years and nothing much has come out of it. Now recently, since the global international order is like seeing a shift and the world is moving towards multipolarity, that's when these pressure groups become more relevant and their voices are more significant. You know, when the international global order is established, it's very difficult to change the ground realities.
So how does this G77 plus China engage with the international financial institutions to pursue their objectives?
So
Are they engaging with them?
So some points that were raised which are very pertinent, that 10% of the nations that are in the United Nations, they own 90% of international patents. And when it comes to digital projects or digital innovation, they have 70% of the global patents. So we can like see that the whole development model or the financial model or the economic model is skewed more towards the Western countries. And now, because of the changing global political order and the changing global realities, a lot of like shifts in the economic order are being felt as well. And we discussed it yesterday as well, the war between Russia and Ukraine. Before that, the COVID-related crisis, and even during the COVID crisis, we saw a concept known as the vaccine diplomacy.
Of
you know?
course, of
and
course.
we basically saw that even when these vaccines were developed in the global north, in the Western countries, the other countries were in line. And this was also sometimes used as a coercive measure as well for countries that were not, in line with the agenda of the, global north.
Yes.
So equitable distribution of resources, research and innovation is one of the calls for this G77 summit as well. So, there's a lot of discussion taking place.
So have they been able to maybe get some fairer terms for or negotiations for these developing countries after these discussions or pushing these policies?
So in certain areas, yes. For example, now that the whole phenomena of climate change is affecting both the countries of the global north and global south more. We all know that the greenhouse gases and emissions, 90% of them come from the countries of the global north. There is like discussion on climate adaptation and mitigation, and the adaptation fund that is being developed, the global north should be committing around $100 billion to start it, and then for the green climate financing and everything, and to provide technical assistance and resources for the global south to basically develop their development agendas or adaptation or mitigation strategies in line with those. So that's like one area where I see a lot of cooperation taking place, and more where give and take can happen. Other than that, when it comes to digital technologies, there's not much progress.
We will be talking about digital technologies, science and technology innovation as well. But Mr. Umay, I want to talk about one of the purpose of this G77 group is to advocate for a fairer political order as well, so that these developing countries have more say or voice in decision-making bodies or institutions of the world. Can you tell us some of the reforms or agendas that are put forth by these this group of G77 plus China?
Thank you, Mariam. I guess, yes, there has been a steadily progress on this front. If you remember President Xi Jinping in 2000 and probably 10 years ago, he came up with a vision of global community of shared destiny, which means that, we all have similar ideas, we all have similar demands, and we all have similar needs. So for that, there are 3 or 4 different initiatives. Shahryar mentioned 1 or 2 of them. President Xi proposed 5 main agendas when he gave that speech. He said we should build partnership in which countries treat each other equal, engage in extensive consultation and enhance mutual understanding. What was the outcome or the result of that was Belt and Road Initiative. Now 150 countries are part of this. There's a massive infrastructure. There's investment from global north and particularly from China and these countries. Then he came up with another initiative a couple of years ago that was Global Security Initiative. That initiative was, and how that was helping G77 and other developing countries was, he said that we should create a security environment which features fairness, justice and impartiality. Within that, we have seen a rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Iran through Global Security Initiative last year. Now, China is offering more rapprochement. Then there was also another very interesting initiative which Global South and particularly China advocated, that was Global Civilization Initiative. That was also where they proposed that we should increase inter-civilization exchanges to promote harmony, inclusiveness and respect for differences. What we have seen, the Pakistani effort in terms of Islamophobia, religious tolerance within different cultures or civilizations. So these things are getting progress, and
Right, right. But
Yes,
when
China
we
is,
talk about security,
and we should follow it.
right? When we talk about security, is this group pushing for some reforms in UN Security Council as well? Because when we talk about giving space to these voices of the developing countries in decision-making bodies, of course, UN Security Council remains an important decision body. So, are they pushing for some reforms in United Nations Security Council as well?
But not necessarily in a very inclusive way, but different countries of G77 and China, particularly, let's say, Pakistan and China, has a unanimous view of how the Security Council should be reformed. There is talk of increasing the permanent member of the
Yes.
United Nations Security Council, but Pakistan and other countries, and particularly China, they also believe that the non-permanent members should increase because we need impartiality, we need more inclusiveness. If we give more power to this elitist culture of this P5 and one organization can veto, that is not going to help. And that's why India, Japan, and many other countries are against this model where we believe that the inclusiveness of global south should also be there. So I guess there are talks of reform within the United Nations Security Council and outside as well, because we have SCO as a huge forum. We have Global Security Initiative as a huge forum. We have many other forums in which many global
Right,
south countries
unilateral
are
and
interacting
multilateral
in terms of
forums,
soft.
of course. Of course, there are a lot of forums in which these voices are pushing their concerns. Thank you very much, Mr. Humayun Khan, for joining us in today's program. We will be taking a short break here, and when we come back, we will be talking more about G77 plus China and how this is aspiring to change the game in the region and beyond. Welcome back. We are talking about G77 plus China and how this is becoming a voice of the global south. Of course, to discuss more about it, we are joined online by Dr. Fazlur Rahman, who is expert in international affairs. Welcome to the program, Dr. Fazl. When we talk about, of course, G77 plus China, we know that science, technology and innovation are important factors and key elements for economic development as well. So can you tell us some of the measures taken by G77 plus China to push for reforms and give more resources to these developing countries?
This has been a very important forum. There are more than 100 countries which participated, more than 30 heads of states who participated in G77 China Summit in Havana. It's one of the largest multilateral forum where the developing South shares their concerns and try to devise policies and coordinate policies and try to identify the areas where they can cooperate in a true spirit of multilateralism. So during this summit also, as we see the declaration of the summit that highlights certain salient features. One of the features is regarding cooperation, collaboration between the South countries so that they can rely more on their own resources, and the basis for that cooperation should be science, technology and innovation, as this is the key towards development of every country. So I think that the crux or the main focus has been on these three elements. But besides that, they have also identified several other challenges which the South is facing, especially the climate change, the international financial structures, and the unilateral coercive measures against the developing countries. So there is a sort of whole lot of issues which have been discussed during this summit, and they have shown their resolve to overcome all these hurdles which are being created in their development.
Right, right. So, Dr. Shamsi, can you tell us some of the measures that can be taken by these developing countries, especially when we talk about sharing of technology, sharing of knowledge, and of course to lessen this digital divide in the developing countries?
Yeah, Actually, we need to understand what is the issue and what are their problems due to which they feel deprived and they still feel that real decolonization has not taken place. The issues are access to technology. They don't have access to good information, access to quality education, quality health, poverty, corruption, regimes supported by developed West. They're just not willing to cede. That is the issue. And then energy shortages, climate change. So these are those issues due to which the respective governments of developing states are unable to satisfy the people's well-being. That is why this divide continues to grow and the rich continues to become richer and poor countries or the poor people continue to go poorer. Because of the corruption in these smaller states or developing states, because the siphoned money goes back to developed north.
Right.
Okay, and they become safe havens and nothing has been done.
Right.
But as far as the digital divide is concerned, the UN chief has stated.
But there are just statements. Are there some practical measures that we are going to see results of in the coming years?
It will take time. It will take time.
How much more?
These pressure groups, when they form up, because till date or till this time, the China became active and an effective voice of global South.
Right.
They were stagnant. They were status quo. They were not
Right,
growing.
right. I want to talk about role of China. That
yes.
China's inclusion in the group has added significant weight
Yes.
to this membership, and how this is going to change global dynamics, and what is going to change. What kind of measures is China pushing for, and what is going to be happening in the coming years that has not been done in the decades that have passed?
Yeah, because China has entered the competition with the United States, let's say, with a philosophy of sharing the wealth, sharing the knowledge, sharing the resources, and giving equal opportunities to all. Now, these terminologies are alien to global north because they don't believe in these. They believe in sanctions and coercion, compellence. That is why this is different. Now, the global north for the first time is faced with a different kind of enemy. Earlier they were faced, in the Cold War era, they were faced with the geostrategic leadership between Soviet Union and United States, or NATO led by United States. Now it is different. Now it is in the domain of geoeconomics
So
and geopolitics.
of course, China has emerged as a key player in the global system and international politics as well, international economic system as well. So do you think this inclusion of China in G77 is maybe going to help these developing countries in negotiating powers when they deal with these international economic financial institutions?
Definitely. Why? Because China has not come as a single state. It is carrying the BRICS with it, it is carrying SCO with it, it is carrying that the infrastructure development bank with it, it has necessary wherewithal. It is winning hearts and minds and souls in these developing countries through investment in infrastructure, not in security apparatus. We are not going to see a lot of Chinese weapons in these states, but you are going to see a lot of Chinese infrastructure,
initiatives,
products, and bridges, and roads, and dams, and energy projects. So that is what people are welcoming China. This is the reason China is being welcomed instead of the global north.
Right. So, of course, Dr. Fazal, when we talk about China's global engagement, BRI is an important project or example of Chinese engagement at the international stage. How does G77 view BRI, and how the members of G77 are going to be influenced or maybe benefited from a BRI?
Actually, a very large number of G77 members are part and parcel of BRI. And I think if you look at the BRI's concept and the Chinese newly introduced initiatives of Global Development Initiative and Global Security Initiative, that basically is creating an overlapping engagement strategy. And I think that it is going to comprehensively give an advantage to the developing countries in the south, and it will certainly become the prospects will certainly grow enormously by China's efforts in this direction. China's basic intention is, China itself still consider itself as a developing country, and China's intention is that all the countries which are in the south should grow and develop together with China. So I think that spirit and that concept and China's contribution and China's capacity and ability to help other nations, help other countries is certainly going to play a very crucial and central role as far as the development of countries in the south is concerned. And I think that most of the countries are already engaged in one way or the other, either with BRI projects or directly on bilateral or multilateral basis with China. So I think China is going to certainly play a very central role as far as the G77's initiatives are concerned, and it will be certainly aligned and certainly will create a more synergy as far as the BRI is concerned.
Of course. So, Mr. Shahryar, when we talk about G77, Pakistan has been an active member of G77 plus China group for decades now. Can you tell us some of the benefits that Pakistan has maybe achieved from its membership, or maybe it can leverage its relations with China in the future to gain benefits or negotiating powers with these global financial institutions?
So, Mariam, since the 1960s, Pakistan has become the chair of the G77 4 times. And Pakistan has very eloquently put forward the agenda of the developing countries as well. Pakistan is one of the countries that has suffered because of the debt stress. Pakistan is like one of the countries that has suffered when it comes to various security related dynamics in the region and globally.
Climate crisis as well.
Climate crisis as well. Pakistan is a country which is around like 6th or 7th most affected in the world when it comes to the devastation related to climate change. So Pakistan has very eloquently made the case for debt relief. Pakistan has made the case for establishment of the loss and damages fund when it comes to climate change. Other than that, Pakistan has also talked about the restructuring of the global financial system. So one of the effects of all of these technologies being concentrated in the global north, other than that, the financial institutions having their headquarters and their concentration in the global north, one of the effects that a lot of like global south countries feel that we haven't yet discussed is the phenomenon of brain drain. So when there are like a lot of opportunities in the global north, a lot of like the educated or
cream of the
countries, they migrate and they transfer. So that's
for
like
better opportunities.
Perpetuates a cycle of poverty and underdevelopment in these countries of the global south. So obviously there is a need for overhauling the whole system, and Pakistan has played a very crucial role in bringing these concerns forward. Even last year, Pakistan, I think, had the chair of the G77, and they
but they send us remittances as well, so that is another phenomenon.
So it's a
that's a whole new discussion, of course.
It's a two-way street, yeah.
Of course. So Pakistan has been facing numerous economic and developmental challenges. Do you think that Pakistan can benefit or has benefited? Are there some concrete examples or initiatives or projects in which Pakistan has maybe gained from its active membership in G77?
So when it comes to gaining from...
Specifically when we talk about resources or technology sharing.
So when it comes to gaining from the international financial order, I don't know whether that's a gain or a loss, because the countries of the global south, they basically, when it comes to accessing funds from the countries of the global north, there can be two types of access. One, it could be attracting investments and FDI from the international financial institutions, that they invest in your stock markets, they invest in your technologies, they invest in establishing industries or infrastructure in developing countries, and that's like one way in FDI can transfer to developing countries. Other than that, it's seeking debt, so debt-based development. So you take loans from international financial institutions, you develop like some sort of infrastructure or factories and something, and then you basically repay the interest payments. So these are the two ways in which the international financial order works. So when it comes to IMF and other multilateral financial institutions, you can like say that Pakistan has been able to access and like mitigate financial crises in the country. If there
And
was
what about gaining from other member countries, sharing
So-
of the resources?
So that has mainly in Pakistan's case been more bilateral in nature. So Pakistan has accessed a lot of like investments from China on one-on-one basis in terms of infrastructure, in terms of like military technology, in terms of developing a lot of special economic zones for example. In the same case, Pakistan has like bilateral relationships with a lot of like countries in the Middle East as well. When it comes to accessing foreign direct investments from for example multilateral institutions or countries of the global north, Pakistan has like struggled always. So that is like one way, this can be more equitable, it can be more inclusive.
So what has Pakistan actually gained from its membership in this G77 plus China group?
So it's a effective voice of the global south. So it is like one of the countries that has a key member as a pressure group, a key member that has like had effects of climate change.
And that
like
is aspiring to change the world order.
Exactly. So like a case that can be presented very eloquently by Pakistan by showing that they have been affected by the policies or the financial policies, the development policies or security policies of the global north, and Pakistan is an example of that.
And Dr. Shamsi, of course, the G77 plus China also emphasizes for or pushes for South-South cooperation as well. How has this South-South cooperation evolved over the years, and what is the way forward?
Yeah, actually just go back to your previous question. It is not necessary that you always gain out of becoming a member of an organization.
But after decades, we should have some concrete projects at hand maybe?
Actually, you should aspire to make a contribution at that level.
Right.
And when you make a contribution, you further your interests. Okay? You are able to influence others and others will take you seriously. So that is from your previous question. South-South cooperation, this slogan has been very popular for a very long time now. There are countries which are collaborating at smaller organizations or at the
mini-laterals.
Or let's say bilateral level or in smaller groups. And there are so many examples of regional groupings, and they are gaining. However, the desired results are not seen primarily because the entire international financial system is under total control of the global north.
And talking about global north, Dr. Fazal, of course, G77 plus China also pushes for South-North cooperation as well. How do you see this evolving in the future, and what is the way forward?
Actually, North-South cooperation has always been existing, but the kind of cooperation which South requires has not been forthcoming from the North. And North has created kind of an international economic system which is in their favor largely. And the South considers it as an exploitative system and an exploitation of their resources and not allowing them a free hand in terms of their original, development. So that divide has been deliberately maintained and created, and it's in the favor of the North. And North would certainly not like, that advantage or that edge to be loosened. But at the same time, because there are some issues which are of global nature, which also impacts North as well. So they are going to cooperate with the South in certain issues, and then there will be a kind of limited access provided to the South in terms of science, technology, and innovation. Innovation is something which the South has to take in the lead by themselves, but as far as the science and technology is concerned, that is that they have to make, inroads into the North to get access. And certainly they have to create their own technological and science base for development. For example, China is a good example of how they have developed their scientific and technological base.
Of course, and other countries can take, lead from China in the future, and that is the way forward. Thank you very much, Dr. Fazlur Rahman, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Dr. Zia Shamsi, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Mr. Shahyar Khan, for joining us in today's program. Of course, in today's program, we talked about this important voice of the global South, that is G77 plus China, and of course, this is not only pushing for a change in the global financial order, but global political order as well, and pushing for multilateralism in the world as well. For years now, North has of course dictated or maybe organized the world order, and this is the time that South needs to get aligned to change rules of the game. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.